And hello and good morning. This is Boles TV, BOLES .TV, BOLES period TV. I'm David Boles. It's nice to see you. And we are here live Monday through Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 a.m. right here. It might be noon, evening, overnight, wherever you are in the world. We're so glad you have you with us today. Lots of interesting things to have a conversation about. First of all, how do you like my new shirt? It's officially borrowed from Jana Marie. One of her wonderful ASL 4 students gave it to her as a gift. It's CSDR, California School for the Deaf, Riverside. Okay. Almost won the whole match, but the struggle was more important than the victory. And officially, this football hoodie belongs legally on paper to Jana Marie. Because it is cold here and threatening storms, 20-degree winds right now, haven't seen the sun really for an extended period of time for more than 10 days on the East Coast. I asked her, Jana, if I could borrow this top so I could stay warm for my stream. And red is my color. Although this looks like an orange red, but it's not. It's a very nice, deep blue red. I can't figure out how to color correct my camera. So she very kindly, because she is a nice person, as I said, a successful marriage has only one saint, and I am not it. And she said, sure, go ahead. Wear it. Little does she know, she's never getting it back. Stealing, borrowing, same thing. It's a New York thing. If I never take this off, should I ever get it back? It's devious, but it is Monday and there are warnings about the weather, so I've already forgiven myself for going over the line. Let's see. Now, I did not set up my browser before we went live, so this is going to be an old, ugly thing if it's even there. And it's the wrong thing, but it's neat. This is our live captions. Now, I have to set it to the right browser so I can show you what I want to talk about. And we're going to talk about those captions in just a moment, but I have to bring up the right window. A little bit of annoying. It's a little bit of an annoyance when I forget to do it. Here we go. This is what we're going to talk about. I think. Yeah, we'll do this. So we have a new podcast that arrived today, published today, called Fairy Tales, Fables, and Bible Stories as Indices of Economic Bias. Now, if you're a fan of this live stream, you know maybe a week or two ago, we had this very same conversation right here. And this podcast episode is a direct retelling, in audio form only, of what happened right here on the live stream. So some parts of the live stream get edited and clipped and put on the podcast. So if you missed that, what I think was a very interesting conversation, go to humanmeme.com, HUMANMEME.com, not meme, and look for the first episode right there on the page, and you can listen to that wonderful story. And over the weekend, Jan Marie and I watched a movie. There are 3 or 4 movies we really want to watch. And they're all on Netflix. One of them is 7 Prisoners, which I heard is very good. The other one is something about mother and daughter with Maggie Gyllenhaal. That's My Daughter or something. Sounds very interesting. And this, that we've been meaning to watch for weeks, Don't Look Up, starring all these wonderful people. And if you haven't heard it, close your ears for 30 seconds so we can talk about this. But it's really a wonderful story. Some say it's about climate change, some say it's about Donald Trump, some say it's about whatever. It's kind of a mixture of everything, where there is this comet hurtling towards Earth, and Jennifer Lawrence discovers it, and her PhD mentor is Leonardo DiCaprio at Michigan State, and the President of the United States is Meryl Streep, and that is her son. And I can't remember his name right now, but he's very funny. And he carries her purse everywhere. He goes, and there's the purse. It's a running joke, and it's a funny joke. Because if you've ever had a woman in your life, and you're a guy, your job, like it or not, is to carry the purse. So it's a wonderful story. I love how it ended, and it ended horribly and tragically, which is just the way it had to end. It's not a romantic Hollywood ending where the world is saved and everyone goes home fine. The world is destroyed, just as Jennifer and Leonardo try to tell you. And the great thing about Leonardo DiCaprio is he's different in every movie that he does, and in this movie he's absolutely not Leonardo DiCaprio. He has this kind of Michigan twang that's very nasal and very funny. And there are the elites at Harvard and Princeton, and what do you know? You're only Michigan State. Oh, it's just delightful. See it if you can. It's worth your time. Now we go back to our lovely closed captions. We finally have captions on the live stream. We're trying to figure out how to put them on video on demand, but it's a recording issue that has to do with WebSockets and OBS and that and this and sealing wax. So here's the support page. If you subscribe to Eric Guzman, the Gooseman, you get listed right here on his page as a supporter. Oh, look who's there. Look what happened here. Oh my gosh, we're a supporter. So that's a nice thing that he does. Not only does Eric create a way to put captions on your live stream, he also celebrates the people who help him. Patrons, which is where you pledge a little bit of money every month to support his ongoing effort. You scroll down here, and oh, and look, there's a new active patron. So that's totally fun. It's a nice way to support people. And you can support this live stream by subscribing. Click on the purple subscribe button. And if you have Amazon Prime, I think they call it Amazon Gaming now, you can subscribe for free as part of your Amazon Prime package to this live stream for 1 month. And then the month is over, and then you sign up again. Oh, Dora's here. Good morning, Dora. I hope you're out of the wind and the threatening snowstorm. I hope nothing's coming, but it's not looking great out there. It's very icky and ugly. And just as weather person Dora reported on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, highs of 60, Monday 30. Right on target. Beautiful weekend. Didn't do anything, too tired. Got stuff to do. And now it's too late because Monday's here and it's freezing cold and I'm not going outside. One person who did go outside over the weekend was the lovely and talented Jana Marie, the California School for the Deaf missing Jana Marie. Oh, she's working from home. That's good, Dora. You have a wonderful job where you can stay out of the cold and the public transportation and stay safe. So in our ongoing series of redecorating these poles, pillars inside the PATH train station, Jana Marie took this photograph. And she said the first time she tried to take a photograph that we originally showed you last week, the artist who was painting the column kept looking at her and giving her filthy looks. And so she said, well, I'm not going to take a picture of that, because who wants that? So she took several photos and sent them to us, and we shared them last week. That was fun. So now they've moved on to another pillar. I don't know if that's the same artist. It looks like it might be. On the ladder. And they're painting these pillars. I wish they would paint the ceiling, because the ceiling, as you can see, is water-stained and ugly. And they've been renovating the bathrooms in the PATH station for, I believe, 2 years. Some people think the bathrooms were closed because of COVID. They were not closed because of COVID. They were closed because they were freaking awful and breaking down. And they say they're opening in January of 2022, which should be any day now. And that's a difficult thing to have a major transportation hub with no accessible bathrooms. Now you could go across the street to Dunkin' Donuts and buy something. You could go to the Starbucks and maybe buy something. But that's it. You gotta go to the bathroom, you're stuck. Now, a lot of homeless people use the bathroom to live and to clean themselves every day. But if you had to go to the bathroom, you could go to the bathroom. And it's funny, about a year ago, they put external bathrooms right outside that were like trailers. And they were controlled by attendants who were outside of the trailers. There was a male trailer and a female trailer. And then in between people, the person would go in there and clean up and go out. And it was beautiful, wonderful, high-end trailers. And I don't know how they dealt with homeless people, because homeless people goes in there and they're going to stay in there for half an hour because they need to take care of business. So after about 3 months, those gorgeous, electrified, with running water trailers disappeared. Now, I don't know if it was a homeless problem or if it was because of COVID. I believe they were shut down because of COVID, because those were supposed to be the places where you went to the bathroom. You couldn't go inside the public restrooms because they were closed, so you go outside and use them there and come in, which was not great, but it was convenient. And I guess some kind of disaster. So I don't know if the attendants didn't feel safe or if the Port Authority didn't think that they could clean the bathrooms in time. I don't know what happened. But that was a big loss for the community, the area of people who use the PATH train every day. And now COVID is raging. And as they're doing in New York City, in the PATH, they are not canceling. I'm trying to say, how do they say it? They said, we're not canceling a line, we're canceling a certain time that the line is supposed to run. And all weekend they were canceling, well, the 12 o'clock train to Hoboken is not running. The 1:30 train to Hoboken is not happening. And they said finally that it's because of COVID-19. They don't have enough staff to run the trains. So instead of just stopping the trains, they're going to run them less often, which is a really terrible thing, but what other solution are you going to have? And it's barely January. It's the middle of January where this Omicron thing is supposed to hit us in the face. Here's a lovely photo that I bumped into over the weekend. Someone sent me. This is Lower Manhattan, New York City, in 1920. It's just so beautiful. I love the whole area below Wall Street because it's absolute chaos. It's like the people who first lived there said, we're going to live here and we're going to put our streets wherever we want to put them. We're not going to have a grid system. We're not going to have an avenue and a street system. We're not going to have cross streets. We're not going to have numbers. We're just going to do whatever we feel like doing. And if you look at the Battery Park here, down at the bottom, with these patches of lawn and these crazy squiggles of what look to be sidewalk, that's how all of the Wall Street area is. You have one road that goes this way and one road that goes this way and that curves around, and you have a street that's half a street and not there. It's absolutely impossible to navigate, which is why it's so wonderful. And there are a lot of cars and cabs who don't want to go in that area at all because it's too hard to get around. But it would be a wonderful place to live. And after 9/11, when the Twin Towers fell, you could get a beautiful, 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 expensive apartment to rent very cheaply in the Wall Street area because people didn't want to live there because of all the smoke and the debris and the fear. And then after a couple of years, oh boy, what you were getting in a luxury apartment for $800 a month went back up to $5,000 a month. So would it have been worth to live there for a year? No. Why is that? Well, moving is very difficult. Because especially in New York, if you move, you most likely have to pay movers. So that, even if you're just going a few blocks, is going to be $1,000. Plus, you're probably going to have to maybe pay a broker. And the broker's fee is usually equal to 1 month of rent. So if your apartment is, let's say, $2,000, that's $2,000 off the top to pay your broker to find you a nice apartment where you don't have to go all looking for yourself. So that's $3,000 you need to move. Then, most landlords want first and last month's deposit, which is $4,000 if we're going $2,000 a month, right? So that is now we're in $7,000. Plus they want a security deposit because they know that people use the last month's rent as a security deposit, and they want a separate security deposit because they know people in New York City don't pay their last month's of rent. So that adds another $2,000. And that doesn't really include any costs of getting boxes or anything like that. So you're in $9,000 up front that you got to pay before you move in to your new apartment. So is it worth moving for 1 year to live in the Wall Street area and then leave again? No. And young people don't know that. Old people like us know, find a place, get in, settle down, stay where you are, and don't you dare move. A friend also sent me this, saying, this is the one time where I think we've gone far enough with the vegan food imitating the regular meat consumption. And I sort of agree. I believe this is from the UK. Vegan, plant-based frog legs. It's so specific. It really makes you wonder why. There must have been some kind of consumer research to say, you know, the one thing that's missing in the vegan diet, frog legs. Let's make them. So I'm very happy they did. What's that, like $9 US money? I just don't know who would be buying them. But I guess what's the difference between a vegan frog leg and a vegan chicken leg? There's Dora! Speaking of COVID, I finally went to visit a sick friend and her son was recovering from COVID. Why did you go over there? Thankfully, my friend didn't catch it. I visited on day 9. He caught it after Christmas. Daughter-in-law had it on Christmas Eve. I didn't stay long and masked, washed my hands. I don't think I need to quarantine. Well, technically speaking, you were exposed to a person with COVID. And they didn't tell me, oh boy, that you were exposed to a person who is COVID positive. And the only way for them not to be positive is to have a test. Now, if you were teaching at a major university in New York City, you would be told to stay home. You would have to report it. Now, if you were social distance, you were masked, you're vaccinated. New York State employee, you would have to stay home. For 5 days, 10 days, who knows? Now they're all going backward and saying, oh, no, no, no. When we tore them apart last week, oh, no, 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 no. Now we'll do tests in order to go back 5 days, but have a test. But here's the problem, I guess, is that people who have COVID, they were vaccinated and still they got a breakthrough. Well, Dora says, that's disturbing as well. It shows this breakthrough COVID stuff is a real horrible, true, non-delicious thing. And the problem with these people who test positive for COVID but feel fine after 5 days is that some people continue to shed and test positive for COVID up to 12 weeks after their 5 to 10 day period of quarantine. So that is why the CDC last week does not require a negative test to return to work or school. Just as long as it's been 5-10 days, you're not infectious anymore. Now, I don't know how that's possible. If you might not be sick, you might be recovered, but if you are shedding the virus and testing positive, doesn't that mean you can infect someone else? Dora says they all had mild symptoms. I have a self-test and will do so. Do a self-test, but wait 3 to 5 days, Dora, because that's how long the incubation period is. So if you do it now, too soon, it might not give you the right result. And the problem with these home tests is the antigen tests are notoriously awful in that they don't report the correct result. The only really good tests are the PCR tests. And you can get a PCR test online. You can buy them now. And they're a home kit. And you swab your nose. You're not spitting like the Binax and these other crazy things. It goes up your nose. You put it in the solution. There's a little container. And between 11 and 30 minutes, you will have a PCR test result from home if you are positive or negative. And that's quite wonderful. Now, they're not cheap. If you have an FSA account, a health savings plan to pay for it, I believe it will pay for it. But check. Amazon's very good at that. If you have an FSA card, add it to your Amazon account. And as you shop, you'll get notified of, oh, this is FSA covered. So it'll pay out of that binder of money. And some things are covered, some things not. That's why when I shop on Amazon and I'm buying FSA stuff from my savings account, I do it very carefully. I put all my FSA stuff in one cart, pay for that with the FSA card, and then it's automatically taken out of my account. I don't have to worry about it. It's all been vetted. And then I go back and put all the other stuff that's not covered under FSA, and I buy that. Dora Will says, will do staying home. Thankfully, I don't need to go out. Good. Just stay at home. Do your neti pot. Because that's where the coronavirus gets in. It gets in through your nose. Which is why all these people who wear masks but don't cover their nose are just so utterly gross. Because that's... You may not make people sick because you're not breathing on them, but you're breathing in everybody else. And they just don't care. And these PCR at-home tests are The ones I saw online were like $89. And I believe it's one test. The Binax antigen tests, I believe, are 2 to a box, so you can have 2. But the PCR tests are very different. But they're coming. They're more arriving. But $89 is a lot to spend for one test on one day. But it's a good test, and you'll probably know, yes or no. The other thing is people who have these at-home antigen tests is they're like pregnancy tests, where you have a solid line and then you have the second line if you're positive or not. And you see a lot of people online posting these photographs saying, I don't know if I'm positive, because the line, the verification line that the test is working is bright red, but the control line, but my line is like half there. I don't know, am I positive or not? I don't know what it means. And every single time, 100%, doctors, MDs, nurses, regular people say, if you take an at-home COVID test, and there's the bright control line, you know the test is working, and if there is any sort of color whatsoever on your line, that is a positive test. There's no in between. Just like being pregnant. Oh, it's a faint line. Maybe I only have a little bit of COVID. Maybe I'm just a tiny, tiny bit pregnant. No. Any color in your control part is a positive test. And that devastates people because they don't know that. Correct, Dora. Dora agrees. Oh, there's so many other things to talk about today. A wonderful class. A wonderful chat. And right now, we're taking a small blood pressure break. I will see you momentarily. Enjoy the stolen hoodie that Jana Marie will see again, but will probably never wear again. Thank you very much. And we are back. Boles.tv. 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 Okay. Trying to see if the captions are working. They do, and they don't. But they do. So this is Boles TV. I'm David Boles, and we're live every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. And on Fridays around 10:15, Jana Marie Sweetheart shows up and gives a formal, hardcore ASL lesson for all levels of folks and understanding. Last week's show was wild. A lot of face painting, talking about expressions and nose size and hair size and eyebrows, and it was a wonderful lesson. Then on Saturday and Sunday, she takes over, has her own show, 11 a.m. Eastern, where for about an hour, she talks about American Sign Language and does some interesting news stories about disability concerns and deafness. And if you have a question about communication or job placement or working with the disabled or where to get a hearing aid, you show up. You ask her, say, hey, what about this? And you can do it in live chat, or you can email the Jana at boles.tv. BOLES.TV. You can also email me, David, at BOLES.TV. So last week, a big chess week. The Rapid and Blitz World Championship was held. We talked about it a little bit back then. New kings and queens were crowned. The new generation is taking hold and coming up fast. Look out! And one of my favorite players, Hikaru Nakamura, who is here on Twitch, plays a wonderful game, teaches wonderfully. For the first time, I believe in a year and a half or 2 years, decided to compete over the board in a foreign land. And so he flew to Poland for the Rapid and Blitz World Championship, because that's what he does. He's very good at that. And they were testing, FIDE, the Chess Association, was testing for COVID before he could get into the building to play. And they did not really set up the test very well. There was just a general testing station outside the arena where they were playing, and they had to stand in line in the cold, in the rain, for 2 hours before they had to go in there and sit and play the chess games of their life. So you had this line full of grandmasters from all over the world standing there, freezing cold, waiting to get their COVID test clearance so they could go in and play. And if you tested positive, you were out. You were disqualified from the contest, and you're done. So there was that stress and strain. And Hikaru was in there playing, did not lose a game, tied a lot of games, won some games, didn't lose. And the fans, we fans who watched him on television, could tell he was not quite right, because every time we saw him on television, he was coughing. And no one was wearing a mask. Few people were wearing a mask. You didn't have to wear a mask, and many did not, because they're all supposedly vaccinated. So Hikaru's coughing at everybody, excuse me, like I am now, moving his chess pieces, shaking hands with people. And he didn't look well. And sure enough, I think on day 2 or 3 of the contest, Hikaru tested positive for COVID-19. Immediately disqualified and quarantined to his room. So all the fans are like, oh no, he was up and coming and was coming back and was only a point and a half behind the leaders. He can make that up in a day. So not only were we disappointed, but Hikaru was disappointed. And one of the reasons why he didn't play over the board in person in a foreign country for a year and a half was because he was terrified of COVID. He's very successful. He has a wonderful, very successful stream on Twitch. 10,000 people watch him every day when he streams live for 8-9 hours. He's online playing chess, and very wonderful and very entertaining. And some say worth $50 million. If you Google Hikaru Nakamura on Google, you'll see that they say he is worth $50 million. And if you Google intelligence, you will find out that Google says that Hikaru Nakamura is half as intelligent as Magnus Carlsen, the current world champion, which is sort of humiliating. On an IQ test. I don't know how they figure that out, that Hikaru was half as smart as Magnus. But Hikaru's addressed the $50 million thing. He says, I don't have $50 million. I'm not worth $50 million. My brother is in finance. I do stock and trades. I may be worth 5. Well, 5 million, 50 million, you're in Poland and you're sick, and you can't get out. From Hikaru Nakamura, the $50 million man, on Twitter. Is there anybody out there who happens to know people at the State Department or the U.S. Embassy in Warsaw, Poland, who can help me with figuring out the appropriate steps for getting out of Poland once my quarantine is up, since no one seems to be able to give me any proper information? Now that's just super sad and terrifying. You're stuck in a foreign country. You're not feeling well, perhaps. You've tested positive for COVID. Your dreams of coming back over the board and facing Magnus Carlsen have dissipated. You're kicked out of the tournament because you're sick. And you just want to get home to California. And nobody's telling you the how or the why to get there. And he posted that this morning at 6:30, 7 o'clock. And one person replied, I isolated in the Dominican Republic and had to call the CDC to figure it out. You either have to test negative within 24 hours before a flight, which is going to be very interesting if the quarantine period is 10 days, and if you can shed for 12 weeks after, oh boy. Or get a doctor's note on official letterhead that states you are in recovery from COVID. One of those two is required to fly back. Sad, right? This is what we've come to with this COVID thing. Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura stuck in Warsaw. Can't get out. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair, but that is the way of this world, I guess, in which we live in. This very strange and frustrating world, where nothing is as it should be. Oh, Dora's back. I'm a little upset about my friend's COVID. Let me pin this. I'm a little upset about my friend's COVID because I need to make medical appointments. I know, and cannot for a couple of days. There are delays to begin with, so oh boy. Now, I know you canceled your New Year's Eve plans because you told us last week. There may be those among us who are wondering why you went out of the house at all. You're supposed to be locked in. This is a prison. Oh, it's just a terrible mess. And there are places, friends, close associates I know, where they get weekly reports from the main office. We've had a COVID outbreak in your office. There are 3 people who are infected. If we need you to stay home, we're going to let you know. Otherwise, if you don't hear from us again, everything's fine, other than the 3 people who are infected with COVID in your office. Now, I say, why send people a message like that? Why say, hey? Be people around you have COVID, but we're not telling you who. And you can't go home unless we decide you go home. Yes, my friend has terminal cancer. Oh, it's that friend. Oh, well, that does make it difficult. But you think a person with terminal cancer would put themselves in a very, very tight bubble. And if anyone around them had COVID, you'd say, can you go stay somewhere else for a little while? Or at least live in the garage, go to a hotel. I have cancer. The last thing I need is COVID-19. Over the weekend, you may have heard about Antonio Brown. Football player, long history of aggression, strange, odd behavior. Was told to go into the game by the coach, and he didn't want to go in. So he took off his gloves, his shirt, threw them into the stands, and left the field. Not normal behavior. And that, I guess, has sort of been his reputation in the NFL. Great player, but mental problems. And people say he's been hit in the head a lot, and they're not, saying that to be funny. And Tom Brady was very kind and said, we care a lot about him, and maybe the football gridiron is not where he belongs right now. And there's a strange video I saw online that looks authentic, where he's getting an exam by a doctor, and he's being video recorded, and he's farting the entire time he's with the doctor. And the doctor was not really happy with it. And it makes you wonder about people like Antonio Brown, who, if you look at them and if you kind of recognize the behavior, you can see that there is a lot of pain and anger in the man, perhaps from the child, that is coming out in unfortunate and sad ways, behaviorally, that he might not even be aware of, but maybe that people around him are aware of. And there's this new study that came out that just seems to sort of confirm this. And some people would say, well, this is just common sense. Well, it may be common sense, it may be what we believe, but when you put science behind it, and numbers and research studies, it gives it more impact. It gives it more power. Now, some people don't believe in science. Some people don't believe in studying things. Well, these results are not for that person. Feeling not wanted, unloved, and depression. Does gender matter? Very, very interesting new study. And I'm going to share it with you right now in chat, so you can take a look at this after the live stream is completed. So the abstract, what is this about? Depression affects over 17 million American adults every year and has been identified as the leading cause of disability in people between the ages of 15 and 44 years. Pin that link. Oh, the link doesn't want to pin. Oh, that's interesting. There is evidence that feeling of neglect or a lack of parental attachment during childhood is associated with depression. One construct that has been overlooked is love from a parent. The purpose of this study was to analyze the association between individuals who felt not wanted, not loved during adolescence and lifetime depression, and to examine this association by gender. And here's the study. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but there are tables. And people who read this say, of course, if you didn't feel loved by your parents, it's going to affect you later in life. Okay, that is sort of a common sense human feeling, but this is backed with math and statistics and proofs. So it's not just, oh, daddy didn't love me, so that's why I'm this way. It gives people a chance to say, oh, well, maybe my depression is not just because I'm a miserable person. Maybe there are other factors that are at play. And the conclusion of this study was this. Overall, both men and women are adversely impacted from feeling not wanted, unloved within the home, particularly from a parent or a caregiver. The results of the current study inform of the impact and importance of feeling not loved in one's life, regardless of gender. The adolescent years are a critical component in one's development that highly influences subsequent outcomes. So there you have it. How you're raised in the home matters as an adult. And there's some people who say, oh, just snap out of it. Just feel better. Do better. You can't be that miserable, right? Well, maybe it can't be avoided. Here's a lovely bit of fun that was shared with me over the weekend. I believe this is the Grand National Championship for Japan's rock, paper, scissors competition. And whoever wins this match is the world champion of Japan. No sound because there's music and I'm not allowed to play it, but the visuals are great. Who will win? Rock smashes scissors. That's what happened. And the cheering and the screaming and the crying and the winning. And in Japan, the loser comforts the winner, which is really a very beautiful thing. And you don't see that very often in competitions. Be a good sport, be a good loser. Why? I lost. And what's very interesting is there's an old stereotype for those who play rock, paper, scissors. That, speaking of stereotypes, gender stereotypes, that if you're planning to play against a woman in rock, paper, scissors, more often than not, the woman will pick scissors. And more often than not, a man will pick rock. So paper is like the in-between. All right? Paper covers rock. Scissors cut paper. So this is very interesting from a gender point of view. That the loser picks scissors, which is the stereotype for what a woman would pick. Nobody really picks paper. And the winner went against gender and went against expectation and chose the male favorite, rock. Rock smashes scissors. So I'm sure there's a lot of thinking and planning going into this. Do I go with what the expectation is, or do I go against what the expectation is? And if the loser had picked paper instead of scissors, she would have won the World Japan National International Championship of the World of Rock, Paper, Scissors. Really fascinating. Next, we're going to take a very small blood pressure break because the next thing I'm going to get into is a little bit lengthy, but not that bad. It's another video. And it goes to this idea of parenting and interaction with your kids. It probably also makes a loop around to what we just talked about with childhood and depression. Mommy didn't love me, Daddy didn't love me, so I'm depressed as an adult. That's the big brush off. Well, now it's not a brush off because now we have scientific proof that that's a thing, that matters. And yes, there are people who were loved indefinitely by their parents who also have depression. There are many causes for depression. And we do need more kindness, like Tom Brady. And I'm not a Tom Brady fan. He cheated, and he got punished for it. But the things he said about Antonio Brown were very kind and helpful. What the coach said, he's not on the team, Bruce Arians, not helpful. A little cruel, a little harsh. Because they knew when they hired him, he had trouble. He was already in trouble for lying about his COVID vaccination or something. So there's a habit of action there that shouldn't make any of this very surprising. So we'll come back in just a moment. Blood pressure break. And we're back here on Boles.tv, BOLES.tv. Interesting, wonderful day. The wind is howling, running at 20 miles per hour out there. It looks like it's going to get worse and worse and worse all day long. And I hope nobody gets caught in the snow. Washington, D.C. is closed down today, by the way. Government officials, everybody out. Why? We used to live there. We know the answer. Hello. Thank you so much for the follow. Flower Lily. The reason that Washington, D.C. closes down, even if there's a little hint of snow, has everything to do with where it is located. Washington, D.C. is sort of in a no-person's land. They don't own their own snowplows. Or sanders or gravel people, whatever salters that you put on the roads to make the roads safe. They borrow them from Maryland, the state of Maryland. Well, Maryland doesn't go into the district until they have finished their work in Maryland. And then they go in Washington, D.C., plow all the streets and salt all the roads. Well, that delay of a day or two means Washington, D.C., if there's snow on the ground, is not going to have buses running, people in cars, because everyone in Washington, D.C. is terrified of winter weather. They're scared to drive in it. They know it's not going to be plowed soon. It's a great big mess. So that's why when there's even the hint of a snowstorm the next day in Washington, D.C., everything immediately gets canceled for the next day. It's a way of life. Beneficial, some might say. In Nebraska, where I grew up, nothing's ever canceled because of snow. No. You're weak. You have to find a way. You can walk in 3 feet of snow. Schools, there's no such thing as a snow day anymore. Now, especially with Zoom, there's no snow days. Oh, you're not coming to class? Well, then you're going to Zoom into class from wherever you are in the world. So we're talking about parenting and depression a little bit. And that also seems to be related to our next topic, which is parenting in the 1960s, especially celebrity parenting. And in the 60s, there was still sort of this idealized idea of man works, woman stays home. Not gender equity, from the 50s after World War II. And then in the late 60s, 69, 68, 69, the world changed, and there was a little bit more equity between genders. But in 1967, things were still pretty stringent and pretty strict. And I'm going to show you a clip from a television show starring Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. And I'm not playing the audio because it's a song, and I'm not allowed to play that kind of thing here, or I'll get taken down. But I can play a bit of the video for you. Now, the Rat Pack was big in the 50s and 60s. It was Dean Martin, Peter Lawford, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. was, as they would joke, the token black guy. And Sammy, it appears, was fine with that. And I'm glad he was, because it helped. Sammy was more talented than any of them. He could sing and dance and do crazy things. And the leader of the Rat Pack was Frank Sinatra. And the Rat Pack was smoking, drinking, messing around with women. And for some reason, people have idealized the Rat Pack and think, oh, wasn't that a great way to behave? Wasn't that a wonderful time to be alive? To be a part of the Rat Pack? It's not something I completely understand, but it's something that happened. So here's a strange video that I'm going to share with you now, and I'll comment throughout the video. So this is 1967, some TV show. Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. And they are joined by their daughters. Dina Martin, Dean's daughter. And isn't it interesting that her name is Dina? And Tina Sinatra. Now, most people know Nancy Sinatra. She was the favored child, I guess you'd say, of Frank Sinatra. She had a couple of hit songs, tried to follow in her father's footsteps, boot steps. These boots are made for walking. But not many people know about Tina Sinatra, okay? So I have to set this up for you because you can't hear it. So the whole idea of this clip is that Dina and Tina, Martin and Sinatra, are going to teach their fathers the Do-Re-Mi song from Sound of Music. And you know what that is, right? Do, a deer, a female deer. Re, a drop of golden said. That song. And it's a teaching song, and it's a wonderful song, and it could be super cute. And there's a little bit of choreography. But and you'll really see this because you're not listening to it. You're only going to watch visually what's happening. And this is what I really want you to concentrate on. How Dean and Frank appear to be obsessed with each other. They're looking at each other. They're reacting to each other. While their daughters on either side of them are singing to them, trying to teach them, which is funny, the song and how to sing properly. And the dads are playing along, but not playing along with the girls, daughters. They're playing along with the boys themselves. And Dean Martin is slightly more kind to his daughter than Frank Sinatra. What do you mean? When you're performing with people, friends, family, strangers, you have to acknowledge them on stage, unless you're not acknowledging them. But if you're doing a fun Do-Re-Mi song, a teaching song, where daughters are ironically teaching their fathers how to sing, it's a cute thing. It's a moment. You would make eye contact with your daughter. You would acknowledge that she's on the stage with you. And that doesn't really happen. It's the strangest thing, especially with Frank Sinatra. Just watching it, for me, burned me up a little bit. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with a man like that where he won't even look at his daughter, won't make eye contact with her, won't help her on stage while they're performing this wonderful song from The Sound of Music? Why can't he look at her? And the interesting thing is that Tina Sinatra does not hide her disdain for her father in 1967. You'll see, while she's singing this song, that she's freaking annoyed that he won't look at her. He'll look at Dean, and Dean is kind of not looking at Frank. He's trying, I think, to make eye contact with Dina. And I don't think that's part of the interesting staging of this, that the dads are so smart that they can just brush off their idiotic daughters trying to teach them how to sing a song. It's really bizarre, but very telling how parents, superstar parents, treated their kids in public, in a performance, on stage, on record, that we can watch 50 years later. We can see how Frank Sinatra integrated with his daughter's life on a live stage performance. So this was by design and purpose. This is the way that Frank Sinatra dealt with his daughter. So here we go. We'll take a look at this. Uh-oh. There we go. Sound's off. So they're introducing the daughters. They come out, nice kiss. Very nice, okay. And here comes Tina. Yes, nice kiss. Okay. Everybody looks happy, cute. Daughters are so cute. And now they're explaining, whoa, you guys are silly. We're going to teach you how to sing a song from The Sound of Music. It's called Do, Re, Mi. And the dads are acting surprised. Oh, you're going to teach us how to sing? Well, we're with the Rat Pack. We make our whole living singing. Well, sit down. And this is what they do in The Sound of Music, too. Where they all sit on the bed and sing Do, Re, Mi. Now, see, Frank will look in her direction, but he won't look at her. He won't look her in the eye. He won't acknowledge her. Now, Dean does every once in a while. See, he's looking at her. There, Frank is finally looking at her. And now they're singing. And now they're being funny. All right. Cover the mouth so they can't sing. And the two daughters are having fun together. And the dads are looking at each other. And Tina's trying to get his attention because she's speaking to him. And Dean is watching her. Won't look her in the eye. She's speaking to him. Tina's getting a little upset, in my opinion. She's looking a little upset. They look at each other, making fun. He won't look her in the eye. Now they're singing a little bit. A ray of golden sun, me, a name I call myself. Fa, a long, long way to run. And the needle, sewing thread. So everybody's happy and singing, but nobody's connecting with each other. The daughters aren't looking at each other. Frank keeps looking at Dean, and Dean's not interested in Frank. Now a little bit of choreography. Tina's looking at Dad, and Dad's not looking at her. He's singing to the crowd. Realizes that Dean's not going to look at him. He's turning away from her. The body language is everything. Now, why wouldn't they sing that to each other? I just don't understand. I find the whole thing weird. And now Frank is laughing. Uh-huh. Oh, yes, thank you for the kiss. Dismissive. And then the daughters leave, and the two of the Rat Packers are there, chatting amongst themselves about what just happened. So, there you have it. That's my take on what it was like to be a famous parent in 1967. I think that could have been a wonderful moment for the ages. And all I can do is look at Tina Sinatra's disappointed face. Came out smiling, trying to get her dad's attention. Look at me, acknowledge me. I'm here, singing with you on live television. And he really wouldn't do it. Dean Martin was marginally better, but not that much better. I found the whole thing kind of sad. Now, speaking of world class, from 1967 and before, and on, the delightful and delicious Betty White lived a wonderful life. And this is my first chance in the new year just to give her a little bit of a tribute. It was so wonderful, full of life, funny. And she had a long career, started in radio. And she had a great voice, great smile, fabulously funny, entertaining. One of my favorite factoids I learned over the weekend is that Betty White, dead at 99, was alive for all 27 of the Yankees' World Series rings. Now, she's not posing with a Yankee, but now that's a baseball history stretch. But what a wonderful fact. And here, of course, is the infamous, now infamous, People magazine, Betty White turns 100. They came out on Friday. I think the day before she died. Post office people were saying, I delivered that magazine on Friday, and I think she died the next day. And that just shows you, old media versus new media. If you're publishing on the web exclusively, that would never happen. But when you're dealing with paper and delivery times, you have to think ahead. And everybody wanted Betty White to live to be 100. And she came within, 16 days of getting there? Now, if People magazine were funny and smart, which they probably are not, the January 10, 2023 edition should have this same cover, but say Betty White turns 101. And then celebrate her life. Hey, she died at 99, but she's still alive within all of us for these following reasons. Oh, the Jana Maria is here. Betty was a wonderful actress and person. Yes, she was. Although I am slightly disappointed with Betty White in that she loved animals, dedicated her life to saving animals, and yet I believe she ate animals, which I always find curious. Like veterinarians, do you eat your patients? Of course I do. That's always never made sense to me, how a veterinarian, a doctor whose life is dedicated to saving animals, eats them for breakfast and dinner. And Betty White, there's a thing going around where she was saying the secret to her long life, this was several years ago, was anything green, any green food, a vegetable, a fruit, pick it up and throw it in the garbage and have a hot dog. And I guess there are 3 stages to a life. There's the young life, where everyone thinks that they're young and invincible. Then there's the middle life, where people are scared. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get sick. I don't want cancer. I want to live forever. Or I have kids. I have things I want to do. And then you hit a certain age, probably around 70 or 80 or 90 or 99, where you can say, look, I'm old. I've done enough. I've seen enough. I've had enough. I'm ready to go. And those stages of life are very interesting. And Betty White, as a career, worked many, many, many years through many decades. To me, I best remember her, because I'm a child of the 70s, for her role as Sue Ann Nivens on Mary Tyler Moore. Now that was the quintessential Betty White. She was funny. She was hilarious. She was cutting. That's a good actress. And I think that was a lot of her personality in many ways. My disappointment in her career was her role on Golden Girls. Just because I'm a selfish, terrible person, and I don't like Betty White, who is very smart. You have to be very smart to have a sense of humor. Played such a dumb and idiotic role on Golden Girls. Rose. I thought the role was beneath her. But I understand when you're hungry and desperate in Hollywood, you'll take whatever's out there. So she took the role and did what she could with it. I never believed her in the role because she's not dumb like that. And she was not a wise, dumb person, as they tried to make her. But some would argue, well, that's acting, right? She's a smart, clever, cunning person, and she played this dummy on Golden Girls. For me, that's not very convincing or very interesting. But what is interesting is how a lot of these people who had fame in the 50s and 60s, especially the 60s sort of, could have a career on television in the 70s doing spots on episodic television, but a lot of them made money and found sustenance in doing these game shows. Betty White and her husband, Alan Ludden, who was the host of Password, were on Tattletales a lot, CBS, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And they were hilarious, funny. Betty White was on Match Game, 72, 3, 4, 5, all of the shows, often. Hilarious. That's the real Betty White. That's the Betty White you love. She's so funny. And of course, she was on Password a lot because her husband was a producer and host of the show. So you could stay in the public consciousness in the 70s and part of the 80s by going on these game shows and getting paid for just being who you are. And it was really quite wonderful. And then Betty White later on in her life went on Saturday Night Live. It was funny, and she had, when she was 90, she had her own show. It was an old person candid camera show where they'd go around and make fun of people. That was sort of beneath her talent, too. But who am I to judge? But these stages of life and this end of life reminded me of a scene from Julius Caesar. Act 2, Scene 2. It's a very famous speech that in many ways reminded me of Betty White, in that she's 99 years old. For the last at least decade of her life, she was ready to die at any second and was fine with it because that's the circle. That's the end we will all always have. And everything out there is a threat and a danger when you reach that age. And I can imagine in this little scene I'm going to read for you now that Betty White is Caesar. And the rest of us are Calpurnia. And Caesar is ready to go and face what she knows is a certain impending death. Fierce, fiery warriors fought upon the clouds, in ranks and squadrons and right form of war, which drizzled blood upon the capital. The noise of battle hurtled in the air. Horses did neigh, and dying men did groan, and ghosts did shriek and squeal about the streets. O Caesar, these things are beyond all use, and I do fear them. Caesar, what can be avoided? Whose end is purposed by the mighty gods? Yet Caesar shall go forth, for these predictions are to the world in general, as to Caesar. Calpurnia. When beggars die, there are no comets seen. The heavens themselves blaze forth the death of princes. Caesar. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Of all the wonders that I yet have heard, it seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come. Betty White, dead at 99, and lived a life of 1,000 lifetimes. And we will miss her, and we will have to make ourselves better in the missing of her. And now it's time for a very brief blood pressure break. We're going to be back momentarily. And we're back from break. Thank you for being here. I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv, B-O-L-E-S period TV. Long and interesting conversation today, and we're not done yet. Several more things to chat about. The wind is still howling outside. I checked on the break. And we talk about disability and accessibility and rights a lot on this live stream. Partly because we care about it a lot, and another part is because my lovely, beautiful wife, Jana Marie, is deaf and disabled, differently abled, some say, and teaches American Sign Language and helps find disabled people employment opportunities as her day job. So when you come upon stories that disappoint you, it's wonderful to have a live stream where you can chat about it for just a little bit. And I found this on some obscure law blog where people can go and ask attorneys or people who work in the law for advice on what to do and to get questions answered. And this one just struck me as being totally bizarre and also incredibly ordinary. Oh, Dora, some weighty subjects this morning. Oh, and we're not done yet. We're only getting started with the weighty, Dora. You're going to build a lot of muscle in this live stream. Well, I'm glad you're loving it. We're loving it too. And we're very lucky that I don't believe Jana Marie was here for the beginning of the live stream, where we talked about gifting, receiving, borrowing, stealing, ownership. Can't have it back if you can't get it off my shirt. So this business person asked this question. In public, I just rented a retail space. I'm planning changes with my architect. The architect says I have to upgrade the restroom to be handicapped accessible, which will cost at least $8,000 and maybe more. Uh-oh, Jana Marie, it's stealing my sweatshirt. Yes, we discussed that earlier, Jana Marie. And we thank you so much for the gift of the shirt. And if you can't get it off me, then you can't have it back. It's the way it works. As I said, successful marriages have one saint, and I am not the saint. Okay marriages have two saints, but they always get along and they agree, so nothing gets done. No saints in a marriage, total destruction. One saint, one monster. I am not the saint. That's what you think. Oh, that's monster behavior. That's not how a saint talks. Just kidding, Jana Marie. I thank you for letting me wear this today. So this person said $8,000 and maybe more, depending on whether the old pipes can be reused where they are. I don't understand why other stores around me have original restrooms, but I have to change mine. We're only moving a couple of walls and installing a new ceiling. Can you tell me if the architect is right about the change? So we have a person, a business person, who does not want to comply with the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And, thank goodness, this terrible person has a wonderful architect who knows the law. And usually the law is if you go into a space and make any kind of renovation, by the way, you have to bring it up to code in all ways. And that includes pipes and electrical and, oh, by the way, handicapped access under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So here's the response from the website. My guess is that your neighbors may have been in that location for many years, and as long as nobody brings their location up to an official, we leave well enough alone. Or that the official interpreted that the upgrade wouldn't be necessary. I'm willing to bet that your neighbors, for the most part, moved in without anyone filing anything formally, with plans and permits, so the proprietors think they have no issues to deal with. You, on the other hand, operating honestly with your architect, operating honestly and legitimately, probably feel that even though you can't discriminate against a person with a disability, you are being unfairly discriminated against. Although I agree that you are being unfairly judged differently than your neighbors, your architect and any licensed professional, including the attorney, swore to uphold the laws of the state they practice in. If officials choose not to investigate every location, that's the governing body's choice. Your architect is only trying to do what is right under the law. And imagine if we didn't have a law in place to protect people, if we didn't have people like the architect willing to help enforce the law, this guy was going to have a whole new bathroom that handicapped people couldn't access. So what's this business person saying? I don't want your money. I don't want your business. If you're disabled, get out of my store. That's what's really going on. And speaking about accessibility, there's a very interesting notion of all of this money that is flowing into the states from the federal system, much of it to help businesses and people who don't have money and people who are with children or have children and need to feed them. And these states, some states, many in the South, some in the Southwest, do not want to spend that money on poor people. They want to keep the money and distribute it as they please. A spokesperson for the Texas Department of Human Services, which has the nation's lowest TANF acceptance rate at just 7%, that's food stamps is what it's called then, it's now called TANF. That gives you a little bit of money every month to eat and to feed your children. The lowest TANF acceptance rate at just 7% of those who apply. Most applicants there exceeded the income and resource limits. To qualify, a family with 2 children and 1 caretaker must have less than $1,000 in assets and a monthly income of less than $188. Those requirements have not changed despite the state's $281 million in unspent TANF funds for the fiscal year 2020. And that is a problem because the federal government just showers money on these states and doesn't say you have to use it on this and that by this time frame. I don't know why. Oh, states' rights? We have a friend who is on disability, and there are very strict restrictions on being on disability. If you happen to have a side job, or if you're paid money by disability and you don't spend it all every month over a period of time, they will come back to you and say, look, we're giving you this money to live and to eat. And if you're saving it and you're not spending it, then we're paying you too much money. And they will go back and take money from you. So if you ever get disability or some sort of welfare from the government, make sure that you don't have too much money saved or that you are not spending too little of it, because it's not a savings program. It's to help you get through the day and the month. And if they're giving you too much, they're going to take it back. I was just reading this morning about this same sort of thing. The state of Nebraska, a year ago, had $1 billion deficit. And so they worked and found ways to protect that money, get that money back. And they usually do it by cutting services to the university. It's the biggest money hole for spending purposes in the state is the university. And it should be. They should get more money, not less money. Well, now, because of all this coronavirus and all this government money and Build Back Better money, infrastructure money, not Build Back Better money, Nebraska now has a $3 billion surplus. And now they're deciding how to use it. And I don't know what that means. The money was specifically given to you for a specific reason. And you're going to decide how to spend it. In 1995, Congress debated a precursor to the well-formed reform law that ultimately passed the following year. Then Senator Carol Moseley Braun, a Democrat from Illinois, predicted some states in 1995 would choose not to spend the federal dollars instead of distributing them to poor people, what the money was intended for. She proposed an amendment to prohibit states from carrying over unused welfare funds from year to year. If we send the states this money in a block grant, there is nothing to prohibit that state from saying, we don't want to have assistance for poor children. We're not going to address the issue of job creation. We're not going to train people to go back to work. We are not going to provide the children with any assistance. We are just going to further squeeze the amount of resources devoted to the whole issue of poverty in our state, and we're going to take the money that we get from the feds, and we're going to use that to go year to year and now maintain our own effort. I think that would be a real tragedy. And that's precisely what happened. She knew it was going to happen, and it's exactly what happened. The state of New Mexico, in accordance with the 1996 well-formed reform law, intends to use details on finding the dad of a child and forcing him to make child support payments, much of which the state would then pocket as reimbursement for providing welfare. A woman in New Mexico received a form in the mail saying if she wanted $357 a month in aid to help pay for her hotel and replace her possessions after a fire, she needed to list her baby father's current and former addresses, his employer's address, his vehicle make, model, year, color, license plate number, and the state where it was registered, his bank account number, any real estate or other assets he might have, and the addresses of his mother, father, and other relatives and friends. She was asked to provide, under penalty of perjury, the date she believed she got pregnant and why she believed that to be the correct date. So if you're going to squeeze people to get more money out of them, squeeze the poor people. They can't fight back. It's a practice with deep roots in U.S. history. Under the bastardy laws of colonial times, a poor woman who gave birth out of wedlock could be jailed or publicly whipped until she named her baby's father, or until he came forward to shoulder the cost of raising the child. And what Colorado found is that when they implemented a new law that allows all monthly child support payments made by fathers to be passed through directly to their children without being intercepted by the government, the dads will stand up and pay. When dads know their money will make it to their kids, they pay more. They pay more often. And they pay through the official child support system rather than just sending the moms cash whenever they feel like it. They've also been shown to be more likely to keep their jobs instead of working in the underground, and more likely to formally acknowledge paternity of their children. So there you go. States are keeping money intended for children and poor people, and making the poor people prove that they're actually poor. And then states like Colorado saying, look, if we want the dad to pay, let's make sure that he knows where his money's going. It's not going to the state to make us richer. It's going directly to support his children, and he can track it. And then the dads feel like, okay, I'm being treated fairly. You're not taking away my driver's license. I don't have to put up with the mother of my kids if I don't want to. I can deal directly with the state and have them take care of the payments, and I don't have to hear about it, and I can see my kids. And finally today, we're going to share a new invention that I find fascinating. Have you heard of Dental Slim? It's a diet control thing. And it goes in your mouth, and it's fitted by a dental professional. And it hooks into your upper and lower back teeth and uses magnets to lock your mouth shut. But it allows you to open your mouth about 2 millimeters. So you're restricted to a liquid diet, but you can still speak, and it doesn't restrict breathing. Participants in this trial lost an average of 14 pounds in 2 weeks by having this device put in their mouth. And they were motivated to continue their weight loss journey. It's a good way to battle obesity. This device is fitted by a dentist and can be released by the user if there is an emergency and repeatedly fitted and removed. Now that's important because I guess in my little bit of research, people who have their mouths wired shut because of eating, some of them do that, or they have a broken jaw, there is a terror that if something happens and they start vomiting, that they can't open their mouths to get rid of the vomit. And they either swallow it or it goes into their lungs. It's, I guess, terrifying. And so people who have their mouths wired shut are given a tiny pair of wire clippers that they keep with them at all times to put in their mouth and cut the wires if they have to open their mouth to get rid of vomit. So here's what the device looks like using a model. It only goes on one side of the mouth, I believe. And it attaches to a bottom and lower tooth. And it locks in place. So you can't eat. And you're going to lose 14 pounds. Here's what it looks like from the side. Clean, lovely. It looks a little bit like braces. I don't know if it puts extra strain on those 2 teeth as you're trying to open your mouth to speak or eat. But I guess it's been proven to sort of work. And this is the scientific study behind the whole thing, which I will put in chat for future reference. Oh, Dora says, you know what's been working for me? Drawing or painting at night. I'm not a daytime snacker, but I go to town at night. Oh, that's a good one. I've heard the phrase is called fog snacking, where you're doing something or watching television or watching a movie and you're just doing like this. You're not even paying attention to what you're eating. You just want to feed your mouth. So the conclusion of this device is the participants tolerated the device for a 2-week period with satisfactory weight loss and were further motivated to continue their weight loss journey. Okay, it sounds wonderful. However, this is what it really looks like. Not a beautiful model. This is it installed in someone's mouth. Locking bolts. Safety feature. Closed field magnets. So that is what it looks like in a real mouth with real saliva and tongues and gums and cheeks involved. Not from a beautiful model where everything is clean and pretty, but the filth of it all. And here's an upper view. It looks like it does go on both sides. That's interesting. Orthodontic bands. Now this one looks like it comes a little closer to the front teeth. That's very interesting. So this one is in the back of the mouth, I guess, right? Yeah, that's in the back. And this one is closer to the front on both sides. Thank you for following, Serrano. It just looks terrifying. But I love that these are real people with real teeth that are dirty and dingy and chipped. Because it shows you this is what it's really going to look like in your mouth. And I wonder if you can see it. It looks like you would see it on your cheeks because it's outside the margin of your actual tooth. But I guess if you're desperate to lose 14 pounds in 2 weeks, hey, that's an easy way to do it. I accept the challenge. I'll have it installed next week. Well, there you go. That's a show. I'm so glad you were here with us today. Lovely Dora and the incredible Jana Marie. New followers, new viewers, thank you so much for being here. We are live Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Oh, stop punching the microphone. We are here Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Jana Marie is here at 11 a.m. Saturday and Sunday with her own show about disability and inclusion. If you have a question for Jana, and this pops up. These are all on timers, by the way. I love it when the bot timer just happens to match what we're going to talk about. And you can have private lessons with Jana Marie to learn American Sign Language. Just get in touch. You can email her, Jana, at boles.tv, BOLES.tv. And you can email me, David, at boles.tv. Dora says hello. Hope we both have a great day. Stay warm. Same to you, Dora. Please be careful. There's Jana Marie. Hello, Dora. Thank you, Dora. Thank you, Jana Marie. Be careful of your COVID infection. I'm worried about you, Dora. Do a neti pot. Do something. Open the windows. Go outside. I hope you're not exposed. I don't understand why Dora's friends didn't say, hey, Dora, before you come over, I just want to let you know we have a COVID exposure. I don't know why they said, come on over, Dora. And then Dora gets there and they say, oh, by the way, everybody's sick. A little bit too late. Good. Hot tea is wonderful. We're big into tea. We love the green tea. It helps with hunger. You can find us on Twitter, at David Boles. On Facebook, BOLES. Oh, they are Trumpers. Well, that should have been your first warning. And I know your friend is very sick, and you're trying to be helpful. But that does say it all. I would love to know their reasoning. I'm surprised they're vaccinated if they're Trumpers. That doesn't make sense to me. And you can find us on Instagram, Boles Books. TikTok, I guess, is a big ding-dang. So we're going to try to get some content up on TikTok. Our old username on TikTok was Boles Books. It is now Boles TV, as of this morning. We tried to be Boles TV on Instagram, but somebody else has that username already. I don't know who or why or how, but they got there before we did. So if you have a question about American Sign Language, or you want a little lesson from hardcoreasl.com, Jana Marie is here Fridays at around 10:15. Gives you a formal lesson. And Saturday, Sunday's more informal, more relaxed, where you can interrupt and ask questions. And you can interrupt her and ask questions on Friday, too. She's very laid back. She is the saint, by the way. The saint, the monster. Can't be both. One's one, one's the other. I am not the saint. Father was sick and died 2 years ago, so no choice. Now my friend, his wife, So you have a very, very sick friend, and you want to go visit, and the house is surrounded by COVID-19. Oh, it's a terrible thing. That's the modern conundrum of living, I guess. People tend to only do the right thing when it directly affects them. Although they expect other people to do the right thing, it affects them as well. But there's not a two-way street on that often, which is disappointing. Now, Dora, you have 2 and you're boosted as well, right? So you're as protected as can be expected. I hope you have a good mask. They're saying the cloth masks are no good. If you have a cloth mask, you're supposed to wear a blue surgical mask first and then put the cloth mask over. Otherwise, you got to get a KN95, or now, if you check, the N95 masks are available in much more detail. There's the medical grade one, and then there's the regular N95. The medical grade one is not necessarily useful for us because it has to deal with liquids. Like if you're in surgery, that's what that's for. But the regular N95s are very good, very powerful, and they're slightly lesser rated only because they don't protect you from liquid, I guess, flowing out of other people during surgery. So that's why the medical version of N95s are limited to people working in hospitals. Well, that's good. You're as protected as you can be, and life goes on, and you can't hide from everything, I guess. But it's important to try to stay safe as possible, even when those around you don't seem to want to stay too safe. So if you have any questions, get in touch. Otherwise, I wish you a good day. I'm happy to see you. I'm so glad you spent some time. And we'll do this all again tomorrow, with luck and grace on our side. I'll see you then.